Welcome to the fifth episode in a Legendarium series about the life and reign of Edward Longshanks. In Part 5, The Last Crusaders, we will talk about Lord Edward's role in the Ninth Crusade and his coronation as King of England. By the end of the Second Barons' War in 1267, Edward became king in all but name, since his father Henry III grew old and returned to his main passion, architecture. By then, 28-year-old Lord Edward had become a war captain in a country at peace. Lord Edward, his brother Edmund, and cousin Henry of Almaine held tournaments across England, but they wanted a real chance to bolster their reputations as soldiers. At 6 feet 2 inches tall, Lord Edward towered over contemporaries. Though handsome, a drooping left eyelid somewhat offset his piercing blue eyes. Like most men of his Plantagenet dynasty, Edward had a volcanic temper that sometimes erupted into murderous rage. Generally, though, Edward was too intelligent to let his anger get the better of him. Rather, he used his towering and awesome presence to frighten lords into obedience. According to lore, he once scared a baron to death during a disagreement about taxes. Fired with chivalric zeal and an excess of youthful energy, Lord Edward took the cross in a dramatic 1268 ceremony. He declared himself a Crusader, pledged to bring Christian rule to the Holy Land. Ever since 1267, King Louis IX of France planned a new crusade to push back the Mameluke Sultan Baybars, who had pushed deep into the Christian territories of Outremer. The prospect of a new crusade even reunited the royal family with its old enemies from the Second Barons' War. Intoxicated by the prospect of winning glory in the East, Lord Edward scraped together some cash using a loan from King Louis IX of France himself, and then levying a Crusader tax upon England. Every Englishman had to give up 1/20th of their possessions to finance Lord Edward's journey. People weren't exactly pleased, but since it was for a supposedly holy war, it was hard to argue with it. Lord Edward's wife, Eleanor of Castile, insisted on coming with her husband on crusade. She left her 3 young children, John, Henry, and Eleanor the Younger, with Edward's uncle Richard. Eleanor was an intelligent and driven woman, and Edward proved wise enough to listen to her advice on political matters. Yet in 13th century England, many saw such a relationship as a sign of weakness in the king. Fortunately, her shrewd advice and Edward's strength kept such grumbling relatively quiet. Finally, on August 20th, 1270, the royal party left Dover and sailed towards Asia with fewer than 1,000 men for what would be called the Ninth Crusade. Lord Edward marched through southern France to Sicily, which his father wished to conquer 10 years ago to disastrous consequence. Even as Edward marched, King Louis IX suffered a terrible setback to his political career when he died of plague. Most of the French fleet then sank in a storm off the coast of Sicily. Lord Edward wintered on the island, only to learn during the spring of 1271 that the new French king Philippe III led his men back home. Despite the setbacks, Lord Edward remained determined to reach the Holy Land, swearing, "By the blood of God, though all my fellow soldiers and countrymen desert me, I will enter Acre, and I will keep my word and my oath to the death." After fortifying his holdings in Gascony on the southwestern coast of France, Lord Edward continued towards Outremer, arriving in mid-May. Christian Outremer had dwindled to a few coastal enclaves. Both the cities of Caesarea and Jerusalem had come under Muslim rule, as did the supposedly invincible Christian fortress of Croc des Chevaliers. It soon became clear that Lord Edward's crusade would be little more than a quick raid. Christian states mainly survived because the Muslim states worried more about Mongol horsemen from the east than Frankish knights to the west. For more than a year, Lord Edward organized raids into Muslim territory and exchanged letters with the Mongol leader, Abaga Khan of Maragay, a city 700 miles from Acre, where Edward's great-uncle Richard the Lionheart fought Saladin almost a century before. His greatest victory came when Lord Edward captured Nazareth, the hometown of Jesus Christ, but he did not have enough men to consolidate his gains. Indeed, Lord Edward soon found his crusading fervor dampened by the dysentery which raged through his army, and on top of that, King Hugh III of Jerusalem made peace with the Sultan Baybars. On the evening of June 17, 1272, his 33rd birthday, Lord Edward went to bed with his wife. As he slept, a messenger approached Edward's guards, offering to defect from Sultan Baybars and provide Lord Edward with important secrets. The guards woke the sleeping heir and asked him to meet the visitor. Lord Edward staggered out of his chamber still wearing his nightclothes. The messenger hurried at him with a dagger and stabbed Lord Edward in the side. In turn, Lord Edward struck the would-be assassin on the head and knocked him to the ground. Lord Edward then took a dagger from his table and stabbed the assassin in the head. His men feared that the assassin used a poisoned dagger against Lord Edward, and according to legend, Lady Eleanor tried to suck out the poison from her husband's wound. True or not, infection was the more dangerous risk. His wounded limb grew swollen and foul-smelling flesh turned black. A skilled surgeon, fortunately for Edward, cut away the rotting flesh festering around the heir's wound. By some miracle, Lord Edward survived. Soon after, Lord Edward chose to return home during late September 1272, stopping in Sicily and staying in Italy for Christmas. There, messengers told Lord Edward that his father, King Henry III, died at the age of 65. Trusting the government of England to his faithful minister Robert Burnell, Edward stayed in France to enjoy his newfound reputation as a crusader. He joined in French tournaments, paid homage to Philip III, and organized his Duchy of Gascony. On August 2, 1274, Edward arrived in Dover after an absence of 4 years. The kingdom had waited patiently for him and now hailed him in grand style. Londoners draped their city in gold cloth, streets filled with pageantry and mass celebration. One Londoner wrote, "When Edward thrives, behold, he shines like a new Richard the Lionheart." Crowds gave their new monarch a tumultuous welcome. Lord Edward processed from the Tower of London to Westminster the day before his coronation and stayed overnight in the Painted Chamber, richly decorated with biblical images and scenes from Plantagenet family history. During the coronation, magnates from across England and its neighbors packed the abbey. During his march towards a giant wooden stage, Edward made an offering at the altar of 2 gold figurines, one of Saint King Edward the Confessor, the other of Saint John the Evangelist. In what became time-honored fashion, Lord Edward promised to defend the church, do justice to all men, abolish evil customs, and protect the crown's rights. Unlike his predecessors, King Edward I meant every word. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.